Welcome back to Same Right Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you the tips and tricks to making beautiful back slit skirts, as you can see right here, with perfect inseam finishing, full lining with elastic band, as you can see right here. Okay, so this class, I am going to show you the tips and tricks like I earlier said. If you look at the skirt right here, you can see it has an elastic band finished nicely with its zipper, as you can see, and its slit. So this is what the inside of it looks like. There is no seam at all. There is no seam at all. The inside is neat and the outside is neat too. So if this is what you want to learn in this class, I will encourage you to stay till the end of this tutorial to learn more on how to have or sew a perfect back slit skirt, okay, with perfect inseam finishing. So thank you very much for coming and keep watching. So to begin this tutorial, we will be using a doll face satin fabric to serve as the interlining. I will also use another doll face to serve as the actual lining, okay, or another lining fabric. Then this is the main fabric. Is actually a brocade and is going to be the outer fabric. So we are going to draft our skirt on the lining. As you can see, we'll be using the interlining to draft the front piece of the skirt. So if you look at here, you can see I've already placed my skirt on fold. Okay, so whatever your hip measurement is, divided by 4. So I'm working with hip 42 divided by 4 is 10.5. So you can see that I added extra inches for seam allowance. So my extra inches for seam allowance, I have about 2 inches extra. So that means everything I have here is about 12.5. So now I've already started my baseline. So this particular skirt I'm making is going to have a band and an elastic. So since it's going to have a band and elastic, so my elastic is going to be at 1.5. So I'll place my tape at 1.5. That is where I'll have my elastic. So the next thing I want to measure now is my hip measurement. So here I'm using 9 inches as my hip measurement. I'll mark 9 inches as my hip measurement, and I'll go ahead and mark my knee measurement. This is actually a pencil skirt we are making right here. So on my knee measurement, waist to knee is 22. I will count 1 2 3 4 and I have 18. So I will mark. Once that is done, I'm going to measure the length of this skirt. So the length of this skirt is 42 inches. But because I'm going to hem in, so I'll take everything at 44 inches. So I'm going to hem and sew the upper piece of it. So I'll use 1 inch to hem, half an inch to sew the upper, and half an inch to sew. Just simply add 2 inches to your full length measurement. So here I have 44 inches. So I'll just rule my line at 44 inches. So that is the length of the skirt. So now I will rule my waist, hip, my knee position, and I'm going to rule my hip position. So once I'm done with that, the next thing I will do is to start to insert the waist measurement. So here I'm working with waist 40. We are drafting only the front bodies, like I said. That's why we have here on fold. So we are working with waist 40. 40 divided by 4 will give me 10 inches. So this is my 10 inches. So note that we are not going to add any dart to this. So if I'm adding any dart to it, I'll just simply add my dart, but I'm not adding any dart to it. So this is my 1 This is my 10 inches, and I'm going to add my 2 inches for, okay, let me just leave the seam allowance for now. Okay, so just simply mark the waist measurement. Then we'll come over to the hip measurement. So I want you to pay attention to the hip measurement. So my hip I'm working with is 42 inches. So this 42 inches, you can see me, I've already divided it by 4. So when you divide your hip measurement by 4, this is what I got for me. Now this result you have, because we want a protruding buttocks, we'll be using the method of protruding the back, making it bigger than the front. So what I have right here, I'm going to deduct 0.75 from it. So if I deduct 0.75 from 10.5, I'll be left with 9.75. So I simply impute 9 3/4. I believe you understand. I'll simply insert 9 3/4. Deduct whatever result you have by 3/4 or 0.75. Here I have 9 3/4. So that 9 3/4, I'll come to the front hip and insert 9 3/4. So this is my 9 3/4. So instead of putting the actual hip, we are going to add it to the front. Of course, you see how I'll do that. So here I've marked it, and then the next thing I will do is to come over to connect it. So let us just connect this so we don't confuse. So I'll just come over with my hip curve. So once I come over, I'm going to connect what I have from here to here. Can you see that? So I've connected it. So the next thing I will do is to come over to the knee. So on the knee line, I'm going to make use of this 9 3/4 now. Okay, this 9 3/4 I measured here. This is it. I'm going to remove 1.5 from 9 3/4. So in other words, this result you have for the knee, just simply do 9.75 minus 1.05. So if you do that, this is 0, this is 7, and this is, okay, I'm sorry about that, 1.5. 1.5. Okay, so I'll have 5 either, I'll have 2, and I'll have 8.25. So make sure you calculate this very well before you insert. So I have 8.25 on my knee result. If I take off 1.25 and 1.5, if I take off 1.5 from what I have here, I'll have 8.25. So I'll just go ahead and insert my 8.25. So this is my 8.25 for the knee position. So that 8.25, I'll still take it to the hem position, and I'm going to measure 8.25 on the hem position. So I will now rule my line for the front skirt. From here, I will rule a straight line. Everything is at 8.25 from the. So if you have a straight ruler, I'll also always encourage you use your straight ruler. So you have this straight. Okay, so I've connected from here. I've connected from here 8.25 here, which is the knee, 8.25. Then I'll go ahead and do what? Place my hip curve from that point and connect. So make sure you place it very well and connect. So I've connected that part right now. So the next thing we want to do now is to start adding the seam allowances. So the seam allowance I'm going to add right here. If you look at my hip, my waist and my hip, they're almost the same. Like I said, it's going to have an elastic. Okay, so I'll just add my elastic allowance. So from here I will just increase this a little bit, let me say by half an inch for my elastic. So when I open it, I'll have 1 inch for the front elastic. Okay, then I'm going to add 2 inches for my, or 1.5 for my sewing allowance. So I'll just simply add 1.5 everywhere. So I'm going to connect all this 1.5. I'm connecting now. I'm going to connect them. That is my seam allowance. So you can make your seam allowance 2 inches if you want, but I think what I have here is okay at 1.5. So I'll just go ahead and connect what I have here. Okay, with a straight line. So what I'm actually doing is connecting the seam allowances. So that is the allowance I'll be using. So I'll simply come over here, and instead of using this part of the ruler, I can just go ahead and freehand it. It has an elastic actually, so that's why it has this shape. So by the time we put it together, it returns back to its original shape. So I'm going to cut out now. So I'm cutting it out right now. That is the front piece. So this is what we have. So I'll just come in and add my seam allowance of 1/2 inch for seaming the band. Cut out the back. So I'm just securing the back fabric. You can see I placed it on fold as well, but this time around the width of what you have on fold, the width will be a little bit bigger than what we had before because of the zipper allowance. So I'll simply bring the front and I'll place the front exactly. You can see I made a line, so I'll just make sure I have the line. So you can see how I'm placing it. So make sure you give about 2 inches for both zipper allowance, or let me say 3 inches in front. Okay, so I'll just make sure I place everything on a straight line. So you can just mark out the 3 inches and rule a straight line, so you have a straight line. So I'll just quickly rule the 3 inches, and that is where I'm going to place the. So I'll just shift it to the center front to that 3 inches, align it here, here, and here. So you can go ahead and rule a line. So after you have secured it with your pin, you just come over to the hip line and extend your hip line. So if you remember in our calculation, when we were drafting the front, we took away 0.75, which is 3/4. So I'll come over here and do what? Do the same. So I'll just use this part of my tape and add up that 3/4 at the back hip line. So once I've added it up, the next I will do is to connect that 3/4 from here. I'll just raise here up. Okay, so simply raise it up, because this is that line that I told you to mark. So if you have a straight line and measure 3/4 here, so with your hip curve, just connect your boots allowance. So from here I connect my boots allowance there. Okay, so that is that. Then I will come back from this hip line, or from the waistline. I'm going to measure Note that I'm using a band of 1.5, so I'll just place it here. So if you're on a smaller hip, just measure 13 or 13.5. So if you're on a smaller hip, 13 or 13.5. So this is a smaller hip, I'll measure 13. If you're on a bigger hip, just simply measure 15 inches. Okay, so I believe you understand what I did there. So let me just define this line. Let me define this straight line. It's very important, okay, for the back. So if you see now, you can see the 0.75. So what I did was to take the measurement of from my waist, okay, 1.5 off, and I measured 13.5. So this 13.5, I'm going to come back with my hip curve this way and connect it back to that line, to nothing. So you connect it from here to meet this line. Can you see? To meet this line. So now I'll go ahead and make this line. I'll continue on a straight line from there. So marked out the lines, okay. So this is my hip boot allowance. So now I'll just go ahead and add my zipper allowance. So I'm adding 1 inch for my zipper. I'll add 1 inch for my zipper. So you see, I'll just follow that shape that way and connect it like that downwards. So I'll just come back here and measure from here to here. From here to here, I will connect, and from here to here, I will connect. Okay, so from here, I'll maintain the straight line, the 1 inch straight line, till I get to the end. You can see I've marked it out. So the next thing I'll do is to cut out the skirts. So we've already added our seam allowance here, as you can see. So all I will do is to follow what I have here straight. So I'm going to cut out the zip allowance, okay. So when we are going to sew, we are going to determine our slit. So from the knee, we'll come down by 4 inches for our slit. That is where I'll stop sewing for my slit. Of course, you'll see that when we begin. So all what I have here now, I have both back and front, as you can see, with zipper allowance and the side allowance. So I'm going to place this on the lining and cut out the front lining and the back lining. All right, people, so I've cut out the lining. Okay, so make sure you place your notches at the center front for lining and fabric. So I cut my lining and fabric the same length. So coming over to the back now, I've already cut the back lining. Okay, so I have my lining 2-piece right here. I cut it also equal length because we are going to have full lining for this. So I want to make a little adjustment, okay. So if to the back measurement, the back hip. So if you remember when we started, I told you to take away 0.75 from your hip, which is 42 divided by 4. We took away 0.75. So here you can see the result is 9.75. So this 9.75, if you multiply it by 2, you will have 19 by 2. The front will have 19.5. So that is to say, from our 42 hip circumference, we've removed 19.5 for the front. So when you remove 19.5 for the front, it means you will have so I'll have 22.5. Please pay attention. So 22.5 should be the back hip, while 19 should be for the front hip. Okay, so we are doing this only on the hip because of the boot allowance. So since the front is 19.5, that is this times 2, we've gotten it. I'll take it away. Then I will measure my 22.5 divided by 2. So when I divide the back, 22.5, okay, by 2, I'll have 11.25. So always make sure that you measure the actual back. If not, you have a shortage at that point. So from that boot allowance we've gotten, simply place your tape from there and measure your actual measurement before you add your seam allowance. So I forgot to do that, and that is what I'm doing. So this is my 11.5. So you can go ahead and add your measurement. You remember I added 1.5. So but because I skipped this now, my measurement has changed. Okay, so I'll now go ahead and connect this. Remember we connected it from that part. Okay, so whatever I have, you know, we have already measured this, so I'm not just going to this. So I'll just assume 1 inch is my allowance. Okay, so you just connect what you have there to the hip. Okay, so that is the little adjustment I want to make. I just remember that I need to add it back, if not you have a shortage. Then another thing I want to talk about is on the waist, on the knee line. Please always do this for your knee line at the end of the markings. Use your hip, divide by 4, which we have gotten as 10.5, and minus 1.5. If I do that, I'll have 9 inches. So on the knee, you come back before you add your allowance. Come back on the knee line and mark 9 inches. So you can see I marked it. Then you can add 1 inch allowance or 1.5 inch to stitch it. So please make this necessary adjustment. So this is how I'm supposed to connect this skirt before we proceed to sew it. So this is my seam allowance now. So if I'm sewing, I'll sew at 1 inch allowance. Then on the hem, whatever you have here on the on this, go ahead and measure it here too. So I have 9 inches. I'll still mark that 9 inches. So just follow this calculation. You'll be able to get a beautiful pencil skirt with slits. Okay, so this is just the little adjustment I want to make right now. Okay, so I'm going to use 1 inch now to sew because of the adjustment I just made now. So I will go over to the front. I'll also correct these knee parts. So what we have on the hip is okay, but on the knee, like I said, always use your hip divide by 4, whatever you have, minus 1.5. So for me, I have 9 inches. So I'll always place my 9 inches and mark. If not, you'll not be able to walk well. So I'll mark and I'll mark. So please do this before adding your seam allowance. So I'll just mark. So you can see the line now has shifted because of this adjustment. So make sure you have this adjustment done. Okay, so that's why I'm making it So, and I will connect from here, from that 9 inches. I'll connect it to the hip. Okay, I'll connect it to the hip. Then I'll also move it to the hem. So since I'm going with 1 inch, I'll just go ahead and connect it to 1 inch. Okay, so it has the same. So when I'm sewing, I'll take that order. So now I'm going to place my, I'm going to take off my, separate my lining. So this is my lining here. So I'll open up and place my brocade. So my brocade fabric, I'm going to place it on top of it. So I'll just go ahead and place and cut out the shape exactly, secure with my pin. I'll go ahead and run my thread to hold it down. So I'll do that for lining, for front and back. All right people, so now I'm done placing and stitching. So you can see my stitches at the back all around. So I made a little notch, as you can see, for the part of the zipper allowance where we had the boot measurement, the butt measurement. So I'll just match it up, as you can see now. So I'll go ahead and take the measurement of my zipper and my slit. All right, so I'm going to hold it down with my pin at this butt point. Then I'll bring in my zipper. I'll place my zipper. So whatever zip, I'm using a skirt zip, so you can see how I placed it from the beginning. I'm going to mark to the point I have this iron part. Can you see? Then this is my knee, above my knee. Remember that my waist to knee was 22 inches. So for slits, you can go up by 1 or 2 inches, but for me, I want to make it at this 22 inches. That's why I have this mark, because I don't actually want it to be that open. Okay, so anything below this might be difficult for you to work. So I'll go over now and stitch following this line. So once I stitch from here to here, I will leave the zipper allowance, then I'll sew the zip. I've attached my zipper, as you can see, and I've sewn my slit for the back. So the next thing I'll do is to put it together, front and back, and I'm going to sew, match it from the shoulder, from the waist, and I'm going to sew at 1 inch. I'll sew at 1 inch. Okay, I'll just bring it, you know they are not equal, so I'll just follow my 1 inch line and stitch to the end. Then for the back, which is the lining, this is my lining. I've also sewn and give it a good press, give it the slit and leave the part of the zipper open. So I'll still go ahead and do what, lay and sew off my 1 inch. So let me do that, give it a good press, then I'll tell you what next to do. So now I'm done sewing the skirts and the lining. Okay, so the next thing I want to do now, you can see the skirt is equal, both the lining, they are all equal. So because we want to finish up with full lining, I'm going to reduce my lining by 2 inches. So I'm going to reduce my lining by 2 inches. So by the time, okay, let me do 1.5. So by the time we stitch, we'll have it at 2 inches. So I'm going to cut my lining now reduce the length of my lining by 1.5. So I'll just go ahead and cut. Alright, so once I've done that, you can see the lining is now shorter. So it depends on how long you want to reduce your lining. So 1.5 is okay. So I'll go ahead and open up my zip. After cutting, reducing the lining, the next thing I'll do is to pick up the lining. This is the center back. I'll just open up the center back and insert it this way. Okay, so once I do that, I'll make sure that this part matches up with this, and I'll secure them with my pin. So I'll just go ahead and pin this part. Then this part, I will secure it with my pin too. That is the seam line to seam line. You hold them down with your pins. Then we are going to sew this way. Can you see? So I'll just turn it this way and go over to my machine. I'll match it up right side to right side here. So I can go ahead and also hold it down with my pin this way. So I'm going to follow. I'll just take off this so I'll be able to do that. So just match it up this way, kiss it right side to right side. Okay, so I can take off the pin I have here so I'll be able to sew, hold onto the zip. So I just go ahead and sew, as you can see, from here till I return back. Right, so I'm done sewing the zip. So you can see what I have here on the zipper area. So I'll actually go and give it a good press to lay it flat. Okay, so but before I do that, this is the slit area. So we want to achieve a perfect inseam finishing. So you have to lay the slits for the lining and the slit for the fabric. So I'll make sure, since I've sewn my zipper now, I'll just hold on to them this way, okay, and make sure that part matches with what we have right here. So once I've done that, I'll go ahead and secure with my pin. So let me keep it in a way I can secure. So you have to stretch and stretch, okay. So as you do that, make sure everything lays open the way it's supposed to be. So I'll just hold it down right here with my pin, making sure all this area is straight with the lining. Okay, so I'll hold it down with another pin, and then I'll go over to the machine now. I'll turn over. You can see what I'm doing for this and this. I've picked them up this way, turn it over, and so I'm going to ensure, okay, with the pin I have here, don't pin in a way that, so you can just do pin at the upper area so we can still work on what we have here. So I'll just take off that pin from there, so by the time I put this together, okay, so this actually can be technical, but it's something you can do. I'll just put it together here this way. Can you see? So I'll just start sewing from this line where I have the top stitching. I'll do that to the end. Okay, so once I'm done with it, I'll also come over here, match them up together this way, and follow the top stitching here to the end. Let me do that. Alright, so this is what I have on my slits, and you can see I gave it a good press. So I brought out a little of the fabric, okay, before I iron. So if you look at it, this is how it looks. So now we are going to sew the down part of it. So before you do that, make sure you have your lining matching up and your fabric matching up, or else you will not have a good slit at that point. So right now I'm going to turn what I have here on this dress to the back. I'm turning everything to the back. Okay, so as you're turning everything to the back now, I'm going to match seam line to seam line for fabric. I'll secure it with my pin, seam line to seam line this way. I'm going to start from the beginning. You can see the lining is shorter, so you just have to match it up right like this and sew to the end. So I'll do that and bring it and show you how to finish it up. You can see I've sewn from end to end to the other end. So this is where we have the slit, and that is where we have the opening. So I'll just open up the same line, and you can see how I placed it. So I'll also secure it with my pin and go over to my machine, follow these stitches and sew to the end. Can you see? So this is where we have the opening. Can you see that? So by the time I open up and sew straight, I have my slit. So I'll do that for the other one and give it a good press. Now I've opened up and stitched, as you can see right here. So I can now go in through the waistline and turn it to the right side. So I'm going to give it a good press right now. So once you turn it to the right side, this is what you are going to have at the end of the day. So I'll just put in my hand and arrange it appropriately. Give it a good press so it relaxes nice and flat for us. Okay, so I'll do that now right away, so you can see the difference right now. So I'll iron it out and then we'll move over to the band, and I'm giving it a good press. Okay, so this is the slits right here. So I have my zipper, so I've already stitched the lining together. So the next thing I'm going to do is to take the measurement of what I have on the waistline. Remember, it's going to have an elastic band, so I'll just go round. Okay, so here I have about 43. So I added the length, the circumference of my waistline 2 inches. I got 43, and I'm adding 2 inches, which is 45 for my band. So the width of my band is 4 inches. Okay, so if I open up everything here for my band, I'm using 4 inches for it, and I fold in 0.5, 0.5 and 0.5 on this part as well. Okay, all right, that is also what I did here. So you have to just iron them, give them a good press, and hairstay your band as well. I'm using 1 inch elastic for this project, so by the time we get there, I'll let you know what to do. So I'll just come from one end of my elastic of my skirt. I'm going to place it this way. Okay, I'm going to place it, so you fold it in half an inch in and start from the beginning, right side to the wrong side. Okay, this is how you to sew it. Fold in first, place and stitch around. So after sewing my band, this is exactly what you are going to have. Okay, so now we want to create the elastic band. And to create the position of the elastic band, you are going to take the measurement of the front circumference of the waist. So from this seam line, I will take you to this seam line. Then I'll divide to get the midpoint. So this is my midpoint, and I'm going to mark that midpoint. So once you have done that, the bust span I'm using here is 9 inches. Half of it is 4.5. I will mark. So although I don't have any darts here, so that's why I'm doing this. So whatever your bust span is, just mark it. We are going to use it to create our elastic. So now I've created the marks, and I'll turn it to the back and repeat the same thing. So of course we have a zipper from here. I'll just measure my bust span and I'll mark, and from here half of my bust span, I'll also measure it 4.5, and I'm going to mark. So after I've done that, the next thing I'll do is to put the zipper together this way. Can you see? Then I'm going to take, this is the side seam, so I'm going to take from here to here. I have 11. Okay, so this 11 inches right now, I'm going to divide it by, okay, so I have 11 inches. So what I'm going to do now is to cut out my elastic band. I'm going to cut it out at 11 inches. So here I'll simply measure, please don't drag, I'll simply measure 11 inches. So that 11 inches, I'm going to cut it out now at 11. So this is 11 inches. I'll simply go ahead and divide the elastic band this way. So one will be for the right, left and right side. Then I'll come back with my skirt and I'll open it up. So this is where I have the marking. So I'm going to secure it with my pin. So if on this side, you can see I have the marking. So I'll just lift it up this way, secure with my pin. So I'm going to my machine now, and this I'll take it here and secure with my pin as well. Okay, so if I get to the machine now, I'm going to do what? Top stitch as many times as possible. I'll do this top stitch as many times as possible. So I'm going to do that, and I'll also do that the same on this part as well. So this is how I top stitched. Okay, so you have to top stitch on this part of the lining. So by the time we start sewing it, we'll be dragging the elastic. Okay, and by the time it returns, it gives us that effect. So to sew the elastic, first I will advise you pin before at the point of the elastic, and also pin the other part at this point. So we know that from here to here will be to top stitch the elastic. So now I want to just take this to this point instead of that 0.5, because it looks much at that point. So I'll just fold it in this way so that my my extension will not be that much. Okay, so I'll just drop my presser foot and I'm going to top stitch. So I'm going to do this very neatly. So you can see I have my pin. So you have to have your pin at that point, so you'll be able to make sure you have the that part of the band exactly at the right point. So once I get to the pin, I'll take it off, then stretch and cover. Okay, so you are going to stretch and cover. So this part, stretch it as much as you can. So you can see me stretching it. So this part is very important that you have it stretched out before you sew. Okay, so this is how I'm going to sew that part. Can you see? So you keep top stitching and stretching and top stitching. So once I get to that pin, the next one, I'll take it away. So I'll keep top stitching like that. So you can see the parts that has the elastic. You can see the elastic is there for us already. Can you see that? so I'll sew and stretch the other part till I get to the end. Okay, so once I get to the end, after sewing to the end, the next thing you are going to do is to start from that point of elastic. You can see where I top stitch that elastic, so I'm going to sew on top of it, of the elastic, okay, from end to end. So I'll just back stitch and sew. So as I'm sewing at the center, I'm stretching as well, so make sure you stretch and sew. So I'll do that till I get to where the elastic terminated, which is here, and here I'll back stitch. So I'll repeat the same for the other part of it as well, and we are done. Now I'm done sewing the elastic. So coming over to this part, okay, I'll just go ahead and top stitch on top of it like this. So I'll just arrange it appropriately, and then I'll just top stitch. So I'm going to, so I'll just top stitch like that to the end. So that's what I'll also do to the other side, and we are done. Alright, so now I'm done with the elastic. So you can see what we have on the elastic, and this is what the back looks like. Okay, so I'm going to put my hook and eye or skirt hook at this point. So this is the slits, and you can see inside is neatly finished. So that is how to go about this beautiful back slit straight or pencil skirts, as you can see. Okay, so thank you very much for coming to this tutorial once again. If you are new to this channel, please kindly subscribe, turn on your notification bell to receive videos like this every day. Like this video, share to family and friends, drop your comment on the comment section and your suggestions as well. Thank you.